Hello and welcome to Func Prog Sweden, the sixth this year. On today's agenda, I will do a short intro and then I will be handing over to Jane Walerud, which I guess most people that are watching might already know something about. And she will be telling us choosing a startup to start or join from a first investor's perspective. And then I will hand over to Johan Bevemyr, who will present startups from an engineer's perspective. And in the end, I'll have a short summary and go through the schedule for the coming year. First up, I would like to thank our video sponsor, Adabeat. Adabeat is a small IT consulting company in Stockholm, where most of the developers have a background in functional programming. If you want to know more about Adabeat, please check them out on adabeat.com or in social media. Also, if you want to support the community, please join the MeetUp or follow the YouTube channel. And also check out the funny store we put up where you can order your own t-shirt with the Func Prog Sweden logo on. All money will go back to making more Func Progs. Yes. If you have questions during the presentation, please ask them in the YouTube chat. If you can't ask them in the YouTube chat, don't want to, please spam in the MeetUp application or just mail me. I think you find all the information in MeetUp. With that said, I will start and I will hand over to Jane Walerud. Warm welcome, Jane.
Thank you.
We are super thrilled that you're here and to tell us everything so we all can be entrepreneurs.
Yeah, right. I have to have luck. There we go.
Yeah.
So I met people in airline, I guess, 1997, toward the end of 1997, something like that. And I was going to sell airline to any company who wanted to buy it, and from Airline Systems, which was a part of Ericsson. And people had been trying that for 5 years without actually any salespeople, and it hadn't gone very well. So that 2 months after I started, Ericsson forbid the use of airline in any new products, which made it rather difficult to sell to anybody else. Ericsson was nice enough not to fire me immediately, which I should have been. And one of the guys had a business idea and sent it around to the whole group and said, "What do you think?" And I asked, "Well, who's going to buy the first one and why and how much? What's it worth?" And our common manager said, "Ooh, you're the only one asking questions like that. You need to go help Jocke." And so I did. Right, and that is really the beginning of the story. So this is what startups like. If you put me this is what actually it is like in the very early stages of startup. It really is like that. You think, oh, we're going pretty well, and then, ooh, and then you're, okay, maybe we're all right again. The thing is that usually roller coasters are safe. Startups are not safe. It's pretty exciting. I love it. I'm an addict. I'm like one of these people who travels around the world to get the startup feeling, yet another roller coaster. So anyway, these people who started way back when in 1997, I believe. That's us. Jocke is in the front, and there's Magnus and me and Patrick. We were going to start something with Ericsson, and we were part of Ericsson's startup lab, or whatever the hell it was called then. And Jocke was going to get 25,000 crowns if we made some milestone. And we made the milestone, and Ericsson didn't pay. That made me very, very angry. And we started another company. We decided to actually do it. We'll just jump, okay? So we started a company called Bluetail. This was started off the very first days of 1999. And it, 1991, some of you have heard of the dot-com boom. We sold it in the summer of 2000. It was about like this. This is what it looked like. And back then, it was really spectacular to sell a company for around $1.5 billion. Nowadays, it's nothing at all, but it still is quite a bit of money. And this is what it looked like. Most of the time, the companies that were sold at the turn of the centuries didn't actually go very well. But Bluetail did for quite some time because the people working at Bluetail were just so excellent at their jobs. So that it actually made money not only for the investors, but also for the company that bought it and also for the customers. It was a really good deal. We sold the company, right, to a company called Nortel. Nortel, it was Canada's largest company at the time. And the CEO and the CFO ended up in jail for bookkeeping fraud. So as you can imagine, the shares that we got in Nortel weren't worth quite as much as we thought they were worth when we got them. Anyway, so after a year, everybody who wasn't absolutely amazing technically, and even some that were, but certainly not me, we were all let go. And I had money. I had a kid, and we bought a dog. And I went into the 5th grade class and taught and did pretty wild experiments with gunpowder and various other fun things, and was a mom for a year, and then started to invest. Okay. To begin with, I was, I'll just take any company that I think is really cool. There weren't very many other investors because this is now during the Ice Age, around 2002 I started. Nobody else was investing, so I could invest. What do I invest in? Well, somebody else's idea. I have lots of ideas and they're all terrible. It's too bad, but there you are. Now at least I know that, so I don't actually I can make somebody else's idea better by asking about them, but I can't actually come up with the idea myself, it turns out. Anyway, so that's what you need to do, is find out a good idea. And you know what? I bet you can. You're probably much better at than I am. So why airline? So what's good about airline? Once upon a time, it's probably different now, but back then it was 5 nines of uptime. It went soft real time. You could have an awful lot of threads on one machine. And so it was really fast at doing lots of similar small operations. Very reliable. Okay? At that point, there were a few airline companies. Many more now. Right, so what do? One of the best ways to think of ideas, I've heard, is that you think about what you're good at and what the tool you want to work in is good at, and what problem do you think you see in the world. And so you think about, you limit it to things that are good for doing lots of small operations which are very similar. And that might be, for instance, fintech like Klarna. There's a lot of small operations with the fintech, and it has to be extremely reliable. Nobody wants their payment to go up into the great bit bucket. Insurtech, messaging, anything with rentals and the circular economy, anything that goes around quite a bit where you have a fair amount of volume. And nowadays there's a lot of marketplaces you can do where your woman I know is going to be doing packaging. Okay. So there's too much packaging going around. Maybe we should do it better. So how about matching people who want new packaging with a whole bunch of packaging suppliers and make the most efficient and beautiful and circular packaging as possible. That will be quite a lot of programming. Right, the other thing that I do is I look at the hype cycles. So that if you're looking at what needs to be done, if you look at on the way up, you can invest, right? But then it doesn't generally work. If you get things that are sort of at their peak or a little bit after their peak. So for instance, here it says, bring your own identity. It says carbon-based transistors. It says explainable AI. Explainable AI, I think, is still pretty hot. Investing in something that's really actually on its way down, the companies are more mature than when they're on the way up. They're also cheaper. and they're more likely to actually find a problem that the customer wants solved, so that you can actually get down over the next year when you're actually building something, then you're on your way down, and then you have something that actually works and go up again. That's the way we've done it a fair number of times. Find an emerging technology that we think is cool, and sort of not at the beginning of the hype cycle, a little bit later. Right, so I work with my husband and daughter now. Current portfolio, I guess there's a few more now. E-commerce from Klarna, retail experience. It's called volumental. What you do is you scan your feet nowadays with an app or on a scanner, do a 3D model of it and tell you which shoes will actually fit you. They're up to around 60 people now. Cash flow positive, doing well. Satellite communication with beautiful new antenna that is in a design prize, a terminal that won prizes called Red Dot for the best design. Started there in 2016. I guess they're up to around 40, 45 people now too. Green nanomaterial, we started to go more and more toward green tech, deep tech, green tech. Edge AI, edge of machine learning actually. Graphitech's the one where I'm working quite hard at the moment. It's we can make copper that's 40% more conductive and 55% stronger. So we think that we can bring down the use of copper in the world, which will mean it possible to electrify the world. And we're doing 2 in stealth mode, which is fun. Okay, so somewhere this is what we're doing. Other ideas to watch, things around climate change, because there's an awful lot of money going in. And you with your skills can actually do quite a bit of good in a lot of these projects that are not only do-gooder projects, they can also be quite profitable. You can make a huge difference. So think about that. You can making more with less, or mitigate the effects, or sequester carbon, or help people know how they should behave differently, or whatever. Automation the same way. Prediction, AI there's still a lot of things that need to be predicted in this world, and AI is extremely good at prediction. So you can make money off that. Predict what houses will sell for, predict which packaging you should do, like that woman does. Anything, as I said. Right? You need to use more than just available data. Okay, if anything, if it's just data that is available publicly, then when your startup starts to work, then somebody else will be able to use the same data and copy it, and you won't have anything left. So make sure you have your own database. I think the genomics is coming fast. We can tell that from mRNA, but there's an awful lot of things to be done with genomics, just a lot. Synthetic biology. And there as well, I mean, do not believe that, if you're doing functional programming, you are useful in all these databases and all these back office things and all of the kernels that have to go quickly. Education. You might have noticed that a lot of schools were closed a lot of this last year. We have to catch up, and we have to make sure that education actually works and gets people to learn stuff. It doesn't seem to at the moment. There's pretty good research showing that people in general do not learn anything, do not get better at their jobs over 4 years of a university education, which is pretty expensive for not learning anything at all. I think if you're going to be an engineer, then probably you do learn something, but the rest of us did not. Too bad. Right, so if you don't have your own ideas like I don't, then you can talk to your engineering friends. When I did that with the Bluetail gang, they had 42 ideas that they'd saved up, which was amazing. Otherwise, take a look. There are other ideas. Okay. KTH Innovation, there's a lot of extremely good people and extremely good ideas there. You can go and get that. You guys can probably go and take a look at Hansa's School and Business Lab, the Stockholm School of Economic Business Lab, and say, hey, I'm a top-notch developer who wants me as a co-founder. This works really very well. I work at something called Creative Destruction Lab, which is all about building something massive, science-based. It's international. It's free for the startup. And what happens is you get, well, me and the guy who's chairman of Twitter and the guy who came up with Alexa and the guy, yes, again, there were some girls there too, the guy that was head of the UK military for many years, just really quite qualified people who coach and give contacts and get your startup going. Once again, it's free, and you're usually at a business school. So this one's at Oxford Saïd Business School. You get around 3 business school students to help you to do whatever you need to do. That helps if you have an idea. Uppsala Innovation Center as well, if you're in Sweden. There's also something called Antler. Okay, now Antler does matchmaking between people who have technical ideas and people who could possibly be business people. They take around 15% of the company, and they do 8 weeks of coaching, and they do invest in the companies after the 8 weeks they believe more in. But it's basically a marketplace for co-founders. It's possible. If you have an idea, then you can go to Antler and say, I've been working on this thing for a while, and then you get, and their co-founders, their technical co-founders, generally they're juniors from McKinsey or Bain or something like that. They're early 30s. They're just about perfect. A friend of mine had been working on a trade finance, not really a blockchain, but sort of similar, and got a co-founder who's wonderful, and I think they've quadrupled their valuation since this time last year. All right, so what else about your idea? It has to actually solve something that hurts, okay? And it really has to hurt a lot because nobody actually wants to buy from a startup. Why not? Because the startup is likely to fold. Something's gonna go wrong, and if you're dependent on it, then you've lost everything. So there has to be desperate customers or customers who really need this thing, and they have to have it, okay? And it actually is, you have to help your customer. You need to go there and understand and help them do things and see where they get stuck and see what they really want and really understand it, okay? Do everything you can to understand. Don't be arrogant. I remember once upon a time going on customer visits with very smart developers who basically said, "Oh, you've been working on that for 8-9 months. Let me," and then here, go away, Harold, and then no, it's done. That's not the way to become popular. Okay, so you want to be careful, be nice. People would rather pay money. People would rather hear that yes, this is a terrible problem. Exactly why is it hard for you? Oh yeah. So why is it hard for you when your system goes down? Yeah. And what would that cost? And who gets mad at you? And why? And what's the consequence of that? You need to go through quite a big process of asking things. That big process of asking things is called spin selling, S-P-I-N selling. There's books on it. There's YouTubes on it. Okay. Right. So you have an idea. It hurts, solves a problem that hurts. You think it's great. You've got a co-founder somehow. Next thing you work on is your strategic position. This is from a Harvard professor called Michael Porter. 5 factors. Okay. So your strategic position is, well, so if you have if people could do this with you and they could also do it with something else that's coming next week, fine. Okay, then they'd rather do the other thing, so they don't want to actually buy from a startup. So substitutes are bad. How much of a threat are they? Okay. If you have suppliers that are selling you electricity and rooms to sit in, that's fine. There's lots of people who do that. If they're selling you a absolutely key machine or an absolutely key ingredient in what you're doing, then it's likely that they're going to increase their prices until you either go bankrupt or you're bought by them. So preferably lots of different alternative suppliers for whatever's key to you. If not, then you know where your weakness is, right? Next one is rivalry. How nasty are people to each other in this industry? The worst are actually the doctors. You think they're all very nice, right? But no, the medtech, people really try to steal from each other. People really do steal wreck each other's experiments. People really do try to steal IP. Be careful. Sometimes it's really easy. Once upon a time when I was doing solar cells, then everybody who wanted to buy solar cells would say, oh, fine, we really need all you can supply, but the people down the road also need it, so why don't you split it between the two of us so we both survive? That's nice, okay? Of course, then China came in and took over that market, so that's all gone down. But rivalry, you have to think about it, because you want to have a industry where you're comfortable, where the person you are fits into the industry. You don't want to feel like you're under attack all the time. You want to feel that people are just behaving about the way you'd like them to, or the way you behave normally. In the same way with buyers, if you've only got a few possible customers, talked to somebody once upon a time who had a way of doing roads better. Well, in Sweden there's one customer. It's called Trafikverket. If you don't get that, then you have a dead company, because no similar customer in another country is going to buy when the Swedish one has not. So you need many buyers. When I was working with Lensway, then that was easy, because there are something like 7% at that point of Swedes used contact lenses. And if one person said they didn't like Lensway, well, that was one out of many. It didn't matter that much if that person decided not to buy. In the same way, you should try to be the new entrant yourself and not the one that's under threat of new entrants, that somebody else will come in with new patents and do whatever it is you're doing much better real soon now. Okay. So when you think about this, what you want to do is think about what's going to happen, how many people are there, how many people in that position, or how many organizations in that position are there. If you're under a few thousand in terms of buyers, then it's really kind of small, and you're going to be ending up with, they'll have quite a bit of bargaining power. Rivalry, you'll feel that when you go into start talking to people, whether they throw you out of their stand at the trade show or not, for instance. Right? So think about that. Think about where you have your weakness. Okay? So right now I'm doing this graphene company, where we use graphene and metal powder, and we make copper 40% more conductive. So we have machines, okay, and we have graphene, and we have copper powder, and we have a lot of patents. The machines I was afraid of, it turns out they're standard machines and we can buy them used. Fine, okay, good. That's not so bad. Graphene, it's a problem. There are a lot of companies who actually say they produce graphene, but they don't. They produce stuff that we, in our electron microscopes, can figure out is not graphene. So there are only a few suppliers, and they do have power over us. So we are now bringing up our own line of making graphene out of used batteries. We use lithium-ion batteries, contain some stuff that we can turn into graphene. So we'll do that ourselves to get rid of the supplier power. But so you find out where your weak point is, and you're going to have to work on it. This is a very good exercise to do with your startup as well. Okay. Next thing is a team. You're really going to work together for years? And it really is years? It's like 10, 20 years? We're talking about that? A startup I was working on and thought I was going to co-found, worked like hell in November to April, fell through because I and one of the other people, we were just not going to get along. It wasn't going to work. So I bowed out. And then one of the other ones bowed out, and now we found we're back in business, but the one whom I thought was trouble is now gone. But it says you have to be careful with this. If you don't like them really, really well, then it's going to be miserable for the next 20 years. You can get rid of co-founders. Yes, they tend to end up with a lot of shares, and the conflict between you will have caused trouble in the company, in the organization. really bad trouble that doesn't go away. Not for years. You have to work on it. Okay, so be careful. That one I care about. Okay, this is my team. A few years ago, and I started investing after exiting from Bluetail, and after around 10 years or so, figured out, put all of the companies I'd been in. So how much had I worked, and how much did the money make? And it turns out that there's a really strong correlation with my having worked and the company going well. And it's not that I'm so great. It means that I've actually chosen, oh, these people are going to be my co-founders. These people are people I'm going to work with. These are people I want to work with for a long time. And that means that the group actually works better. And of course, all startups are short on people, so that it helps. So that it generally, that's why we do what we do, which is to go into very few companies, and each one of us 3 takes at most 2 active companies. Okay. So our startups this way. Listed a few, sold a few are growing. Some have done badly, and we have a few, 5 in that we're currently active. All right, people often ask about how do you actually get money? And there's all of these stories in the newspapers. The VCs are just so good at marketing how amazing they are. And say that you can't possibly have a good startup if you don't take in lots and lots of money from us. Well, that's not true. Okay. Paradox is a game company. They didn't take any VC money at all. They took some very early on from Spielton, and that's it. Okay. So they had the people who owned it, Stefan Vester, I think he owned 2/3 of the company himself when they sold it for billions, or IPO'd it for billions. Minecraft. I think there are 3 or 4 people who owned it and they sold it, right? So we bootstrapped Teclo. It didn't sell for very much, but it still made a difference in people's lives because we had nobody else owning any shares. Ellen, we listed with 120 angels in it. Lensway we sold with a similar number of angels in it. SatCube is only at angels now. Econo is only at angels now. We had some local VCs into RaceFox, Graphmatech, and Bluetail. No international ones. Volumental early on got one Silicon Valley guy who loves his vineyard. So they're sort of international, but maybe. And Tobii, Klarna, and Swedish Algae Factory definitely have international investors. It is not true that you get the most money from the biggest exits as a founder, as an employee. It is just not true. You need to think about that. It can be more profitable to start a smaller company where you own the whole thing. It is possible. It's not, but on the other hand, Klarna, of course, is wonderful, right? But possible. And then you can wonder why we're doing this. It's been a while. Bank sold a couple of companies. I've sold a few companies. Even Caroline has done some pretty good stuff. Why the hell are we doing it? Okay. And well, we've built up some skills, and why not use them? Okay. And it's also exciting. It's just being on that roller coaster. We actually care and love and worry about, and it's like they're like kids, right? And we care about them a lot. And we like to contribute. Jobs, skills, and also more entrepreneurs, okay, who know how to start companies so they can do it again themselves, and they contribute in their turn. So you can see that Tobii turned into Brightly, which is invested in quite a few companies. Lensway turned into Footway, which turned into Atomico and Blacking Minds, and goodness knows how many companies that has been, right? Bluetail turned into an awful lot of companies, which have turned into an awful lot of companies themselves. You might say that Bluetail turned into Klarna, which turned into Norwen, right? And Norwen is doing Well, I'm a mentor at their Impact Hub, and they got 2,200, I believe, or something like that, applications to be in their acceleration for impact startups. They're huge, and so that's the way the Swedish startup system. I believe that's the same for most places. That's the way that it all works. You actually pay it forward, start a new company. Other people say, "Oh, I can do this too. This is not so hard," and then they do. So that's what I do, okay? And it's over and over and over again. So right now I really am probably going to co-found a company. And that's fun, and I'm glad to do it. So if I was going to say anything more, it's basically I was going to tell you how to choose, and it's basically these things that I want you to do. Figure out some idea, okay? Either limited to underlying Elixir or functional programming. Think about an emerging technology. Think about what's hot. Think about what's not hot, and has a big customer perspective, right, that they really hurts. And think about your strategic position. That's it. That's what I was going to say. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you very much. I'll keep you up here for questions.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you go so easy.
Let Johan up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, like, I was about to ask you what you're looking for, but you already told me that, what you're looking for. What's your take on, like, blockchain? Is it up, down? Is it still hot?
Oh, goodness. Right, so I'm green. I'm wearing. I'm a greenie.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the moment, the cryptocurrencies are taking too much energy.
Yep.
Okay. I don't believe in proof of work. Okay. Because it's bad for the world. That said, I think that blockchain itself is an interesting technology, and that there are definitely need for decentralized. I think I can see several things where you can decentralize the databases, and that's probably not a bad thing. I've been looking for quite a few years now for a good blockchain startup that I wanted to deal with, and I haven't found one.
It's an idea.
There you go. It's none of my. Once again, my ideas generally lousy.
Okay, so we're not going with that idea.
No, you can. Other people can have wonderful blockchain ideas. I haven't had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever made a big mistake and thought, "Oh my God, this is going to bring me down"?
Big mistakes constantly.
Okay.
Just constantly. Nowadays, I have enough cushion in every way that it's not likely to bring me down. Injuries bring me down.
Oh.
Yeah, but no, I never invest that much in any one company that it's going to make me a poor fattigpensionär, a poor retired person. No.
Okay. Are you still looking for companies in Sweden? You look everywhere in the world?
Well, since we actually honestly work operatively in our companies,
Sweden is easiest for?
Europe,
maybe?
It needs to be within reasonable commuting distance for like at least a short week a month there on site. I mean, COVID, we've all learned to work remotely, but it's more fun. Darn it! It's much more fun if you can actually be there and do and work together and be on the whiteboard together and say, "Oh, yeah, good idea, good point." That's something all three of us value and all three of us think is important. So we tend to look in Sweden. We look as well in Finland and Norway and maybe the Baltic states, and that's basically as far.
Okay.
With the Creative Destruction Lab, then we do invest a little bit in those hot startups that are international. But then it's basically because we've mentored them. Caroline's there and I'm there. If we've mentored them a lot and think that, wow, these people are really doing great, then we'll give them some money.
Have you ever found a company that came to you with a good idea, but the people behind it was, this is not going to work because of the people?
Oh, yeah. Constant.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's really a match of technology or solving a problem and the people behind it.
If you have a good group and a sort of idea, it actually is true that the good group can generally turn that bad idea into a fairly decent one.
Yep.
if you've got a bad group, they can turn a fantastic idea into absolutely nothing.
I understand.
Yeah, no, it actually is true.
Yep.
It's nothing one wants to believe, but it's true.
Yeah, I've seen it myself, but not in startups.
Mm.
Thank you very much. Again.
Thank you.
Yes. Then, next presentation, Startups from an Engineer's Perspective by Johan Bevemyr. Hello and welcome, Johan.
Hello.
Yes, it's so fun that we first had like an investor's perspective and now we get the engineer's perspective. Will we hear the same story or will we hear another story?
Some of that will probably be, you play. Some of
And you will tell us like, be careful which VC you go with.
yeah, partly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Partly.
thank you. The stage is yours.
Right, thank you. So my perspective is slightly different from Jane's, I think. I've been working with Jane in a couple of startups, and that has been great. But I haven't done as many as she has, but I've been more involved in them, in actually writing code and stuff like that. So it takes longer for me. Maybe some background first, so you know where I'm coming from. I've been programming for a long time. I started in the early 1980s on the first home computer that I got my hands on, and started writing computer games that we tried to sell on cassette tapes, which was a medium of the time. And I continued programming. I really loved that, and studied at Uppsala University, where I eventually, after a lot of fun, ended up with a PhD in computer science. I was working with Prolog implementation at that point, parallel program Prolog implementation, and met up with my supervisor, and we were asked to start a lab at Ericsson. Or he was asked and I was asked in turn if I wanted to join him there. And that lab turned out to be the sister lab of CS Lab, which is where Erlang was invented. And we know that, of course, since we had been working with them. Erlang sort of originated or were inspired by Prolog, and we had been looking at their problems and sought inspiration from their sort of real applications. At Ericsson, we met Jane, and since Ericsson decided that Erlang wasn't the right choice for them, we decided to start our own company and try to exploit what we thought were the really new and exciting technology found in Erlang. And it turned into a number of companies where we have used Erlang as a competitive advantage, or one of the really core technologies. We haven't only used Erlang, but we have used it where we think it made sense, and I think it has been one of the things that made it possible for us to succeed. So we did Bluetail and Klarna together with Jane, and then we started Tailf, that was acquired by Cisco about 5 years ago. We spent almost 10 years building Tailf, and now about a year ago we started a new company called Avassa, which does cloud for the edge, or edge cloud management technology. When Tailf was acquired by Cisco, we brought Erlang into the Cisco core after some time. So nowadays, a lot of Cisco equipment actually ships with an Erlang engine inside it, running Erlang code. And I ended up as a district engineer at Cisco, which was really interesting. These large companies, both Ericsson and Nortel, that we ended up at after Bluetail and Cisco, they're interesting in many ways. But one of the interesting aspects of them is that they have really good perspective of where the market is going, and they have really good visions of where things are happening. They are not that good at executing, in my experience, but they are interesting places to be to see where get a glimpse of the future in a sense. Now I have some other things going. I'm an industrial advisor at Fairpoint Capital, which is one of the venture capital funds in Stockholm, in Sweden. They're mostly active in the Nordics, and also member of the investment committee of a company called Ruasset, which invests in research projects, more or less. But it's not really from that perspective I'm talking today. So what I'm going to try to present today is the process we've been using for starting companies, and what it has ended up looking like after now 4 iterations. And there are many different ways to do startups, but this is what we have been using. My perspective on what we have been using. I'll try to walk you through the different parts and things that I can think of that might be relevant. I'm leaving a lot of things out, of course. It's hard to cover in a short speech. All from idea, which Jane covered beautifully. Team, funding. When you start, what do you think about then? Build your first product, how to get that shipped into the hands of customer. If you need additional funding, which you may not always need, but we have in general needed some more funding above the seed funding. And then how we have been growing the company after that, and then finally managed to sell most of the companies in an exit. So Jane had a really good presentation on how to generate ideas, and trying to find an idea that solves a problem that is painful is really key, as Jane said, and it's really right that customers generally try to avoid buying from startups. There must be a really painful problem that you're solving for them to do it. Otherwise, it's just too large a risk, because startups, they die or they get acquired by a competitor, and they can no longer use a product that they want. We have tried to get around this in various ways. Sometimes it's been fruitful to promise the customers that they can have the source code, or contractually promise them that even if we get acquired or even if we go bankrupt, you will still have access to the technology we are selling you. So we have put our code in escrow, for example, to ensure that if something bad happens to our company, they would still have access to the source code. But the loop we have been iterating is essentially this: come up with an idea, find some unique selling points or pain points that you solve with this idea, and figure out if someone else has already tried this or are currently doing the exact same thing. And that may take a lot of time, especially if there are small companies which are hard to find. If you end up with an idea, you try it out with a bunch of, or we have been trying it out with potential customers, as many as we could find, but generally 2 or 3, 1, 2, 3, whatever. And if we couldn't find any potential customers, we've sort of tried the idea out on people experts in the field that would know the market. And tech-wise, we of course have to ask ourselves whether we can build it or not, and do we have something unique that we can contribute, and is it difficult enough? If it is difficult enough, in many cases we think, or it has been the case, that we have invented interesting new technologies. But if it's not difficult enough, you have to compete in some other way. And and you have a problem for many reasons. It will be hard to get someone to invest in your technology if it's not, or your idea if it's not difficult enough, because then someone could just copy it. We also looked at the team to see whether the idea actually plays to our strengths. And we have abandoned quite a few ideas because we realized that this is not really the kind of problem we're really good at solving. And also, will it be fun to do? Is this a fun project to do? If you're going to do it for 10 years, 15 years, it has to be fun, at least initially. But then the definition of fun is maybe a bit different between people. We tend to like challenges, but it can very well be in a fairly boring setting. That's fine. The really exciting fields of sort of product fields, they tend to be a bit overcrowded. So we have found it better to find ideas that lives in an environment where many people find it boring. And as Jane mentioned, how does it fit into current trends? Is it already overhyped, or will it be overhyped? We tried to stay away from those. We like a bit of a hype because it has helped us to build momentum around our technology. And if you can jump on it early enough, and if it's not sort of overwhelming like AI or something like that, you can ride it for a bit. But if you get in too early or get in too late into the hype, or if the hype turns out to be too big, like AI, then it might be very hard to compete, and it will be hard to compete for money and for talent and in the market. So we've tried to stay away from that. A bit of hype is really good, or especially if you can build your hype yourself, or hook on to hype and try to build momentum around it. And we also look at what this is going to look like in 5 years' time. Where do we think that the field will go? Will this be relevant in a few years' time? Having said that, it's really easy to shoot down ideas. I think, at least in our team, we have been more prone to shooting down ideas than to jump on them too eagerly. And we also found that, as I said, once we engage, innovation tends to come if the problem is difficult enough, or if it turns out to be a more difficult problem than we initially thought. And as I briefly mentioned, there is a risk of thinking that large companies are more of a competition than they actually are. We have found. So from being inside quite a few large companies, we've seen what the process looks like when they have really good ideas and they know where the market is going, but they are fairly poor at executing. And the reason for that is, well, it's various reasons. But one of them is that they have usually huge baggage of existing products that they want to cram into this new thing they're trying to build. And there are teams that get thrown together to build this new thing, and it usually doesn't work all that well. So they're not very, very quick. So we have found that you usually don't have to be too concerned with competition for big companies. It's more of a concern if there are other startups or smaller companies that are quicker. Quite the contrary, actually, with large companies. If you can build something that they are trying to build and failing, it might be a good exit strategy as well. Or you may sell the technology to them. Now, the other side of this, which I have only been partly involved in, is evaluating what the business side is of the idea. Is there a market for this idea, for this product, for this service? Is it large enough to build a company around that can have a valuation have a valuation that is interesting in when we have captured a reasonable size in the market. And who are the customers? And can we reach them? As Jane said, if there are just 1 or 2 customers, it might be tricky. But anyway, you have to identify the customers, and you have to think about how you can reach them. Do you have the access to the right channels? If there are the same customers that you worked with before, it's easier, right? Then you have probably good access to the right people at the companies that are going to buy your product. And that's what we have partly been trying to do. And you have to look at the competition. What is out there? So once you've decided that, hey, this idea actually survived all these different difficult things, these difficult tests, you have a winner. And if you have more than one, you're really lucky. A few words about Erlang. I fully agree with Jane said about the strengths of Erlang. We have been using Erlang in a lot of our projects, companies, for a number of reasons. And I think initially when we started Bluetail, Erlang was just it didn't exist outside Ericsson. We helped make it open source and make it available outside Ericsson. But at that point, it was really something new and different, and we thought we could explore that advantage that we found in that. And the interesting thing with Erlang was that it originated from the telecom industry, from Ericsson, where they had these telephony switches that they needed to program efficiently. They had a C++ project that failed miserably, and they had a lot of specific custom-built hardware processors that execute the programs in a fairly specific way. They could support many concurrent processes and be fault tolerant and stuff like that. So when they invented Erlang, they wanted to create a language that would both handle many concurrent sessions. It was designed for high reliability. A telephony switch is allowed to be down a few minutes a year. So you need to be able to upgrade software at runtime. You need to be able to isolate crashes and all of that. So they designed that into the language. And what a telephony switch is mainly protocol processing of many concurrent sessions. So it's really useful or suited for protocol processing. It's multiprocessor built for multiprocessor friendliness or for multiprocessor execution from the start. And they very, very purposely designed Erlang as a language without pointers and without shared memory for concurrency. And they looked at logic programming languages and functional languages and compared that to writing the same problem in another imperative language like C or Pascal, which they were using at the time at Ericsson, and decided that functional programming really had a huge advantage in the size of the programs. And all of these things turned out to be really great also for internet like applications, which was just I guess a coincidence, more or less. So we have used that strength to build applications that are sort of modern, that has the same kind of that need the same kind of solutions as the old telecom switches did. All right, so if we look at the founding team, one of the things that we have more or less established is that we tend to work with people that we have worked with before, not necessarily founded companies with before, but at least worked with before, so we know how they function. We have found that if you just know someone socially, that's usually not enough to know how it is to work with them, even if they are really nice. But when we embark on a project like this, it's really important that the founding team works well together, and otherwise it's easy to get into conflicts, and that is what breaks many startups, I think. And some things needs to be agreed on at the start with fund, at least for us. What the goal is of the company. In our case, it has been to sell the company and make money. And if you have that as a goal, other things fall out from that. But there are other reasons to start companies. It could be to have fun or to attack interesting problems, but not necessarily care about making the company commercially very successful. But for our purposes, we found that it sort of coincides. If it's successful commercially, it's usually because we're building the right thing, and that is also fun. And what we also want to agree on what the exit looks like in 5-10 years time. What are we striving for? Is it to sell the company, an IPO? Is it a tech exit, or is it to generate income over time? Just be a generally profitable company that we can live on for the rest of our lives. You have to figure out what the salaries are going to be. Otherwise, that might be a source of conflict. How to divide the shares when you start the company. How much you're going to work. So if you are a professor, for example, you may want to spend time teaching or doing research, and you spend some time at the startup. And that has to be established from the start if that's the goal. And also how much time you give the startup. So you agree between yourselves that we're going to give this 5 years, or 2 years, or 3 years, or whatever you agree on. But that has to be. Now it's usually for longer. But if it doesn't work, or if you decide that I want to do something else, it should be an option for doing that. And we formalize this in a shareholder agreement. So once we've done that, we start looking for funding. And to get some funding, either from ourselves or from some angel investor, we have a few things we need to figure out. What are the intellectual property situation in the company? Do we own everything we need, or do we have we secured it? Maybe we have patents for it, or at least someone else doesn't own the IP that we rely on. We look at the risks. You of course have to decide what the valuation is, or you have to agree with the founders or the investors how much the company is going to be valuated at. You need some kind of plan for both for yourself and also for the investor, to see what are we going to use with what are we going to do with this money. It's useful, maybe not so much for actually following up on that in terms of hey, you didn't reach this mile point, now I want my money back or something. But it's really good to have a goal to work towards, and of course things happen. So maybe you didn't reach that milestone, but there was a good reason for it, or there were some other things that happened. And we also, if the seed funding isn't enough, and sometimes you know that from the start, you have to look at what do we need to achieve to get additional funding. How much money do we actually need in order to secure Series A funding, for example? Will the money we are getting from ourselves or for our angel investor actually be enough to get us to that point? And it might be that you get the money in tranches, that you get some money first, and when you reach a milestone you get some more money, which is fine. in our case, we have been able to contribute some of the seed funding ourselves. And that can be done in different ways. You can either work without pay, or you can contribute some funds, or you bring on an angel investor, and it should be someone that you work well with, of course, because you're going to work really closely with them, and that brings something into the company that is useful and complements whatever you are contributing. So once you have secured that, you have agreed on what you want to do, you have some money in the bank, and you have actually started the company, or you have quit your other engagements, which is sort of a milestone in itself, that everyone in the team has actually quit their old jobs or whatever they were doing. And you sit together and in this new office, or you work now these days work over Zoom, or some other thing like that. You now are ready to move towards move forward with your product. So what does it look like? Well, first of all, you need to validate your business case, that it's actually going to be what you think it was going to be. You need to find some pilot customers, at least if you have sort of a kind of products we have been building. So you need someone to do that. You need to secure your IP. If you don't have it, you have to ensure that all the contracts with some subcontractors and whatnot ensures that you as a company owns the IP that is produced. And of course, you need to set up your software development environment, like repositories, CI/CD pipelines, and all of that. All that involves building a product and support organization and delivery organization. And you need to decide, or we have needed to decide, what the delivery strategy is for the product. So it's just not enough to build a really cool software or product. You also have a way. You need to have a way to get it to the customer, whether it's an actual app that you sell as an installable software, or as a downloadable app or something, or whether it's a service or a platform as a service or something like that. And usually we have built a prototype to figure these things out. So the goals of building a prototype have been a few different goals. We usually want to use it to figure out where the difficult parts are. If there are things that we don't already know how to solve, we need to drill down and try to find solutions, or at least ways around them. We need to figure out what the right technology is for the particular problem. As I said, we've been using Erlang, but not exclusively. We have used a lot of other languages as well. In many, I think all cases, the core technology or the core of the product has always boiled down to being written in Erlang. The complicated logic has been written in Erlang, but we have written a lot of C and Java and Python and some Rust and some all sort of things. Since Erlang is a bit somewhat of the technology, when we started our first company, or both Bluetail and Tailf actually, we didn't even tell our customers we were using Erlang. We thought it would scare them away, and that fear has gone away as Erlang has become more popular, at least, or more well known. So when we started Tailf, we didn't say that we were using Erlang, so we provided C and Java and Python APIs instead. But over time, we got customers that were excited about Erlang, and we provided an Erlang API as well. So the prototype, we use that to find the right technology, find out where we need to invent. and also to kind of scope it out, to see what are the real size of this problem, and what kind of competences are we missing. When we started Avassa, we knew from the start that we would need a web UI team, and we didn't have the competence ourselves. So one of the first hires we made was to hire a really great web UI developer, front-end developer that had experience from our domain. And part of this prototype has also often been to figure out what kind of open source we can use. Of course, we do use a lot of open source, but some of the open source that's out there is not, well, it depends on what you're going to use it for. If it's going to be the core of your technology or your offering, your product, you're probably going to have to support it and extend it and fix bugs in it. And so you really need to understand it well. Some of the open source, or most of the open source, you don't have to touch at all. Like the Erlang engine, for example, we rarely do anything with that. But other parts we have decided to re-implement ourselves, or implement versions of some of the available open source stuff that was better suited to our problem domain, since we knew that we would have to own that source, or own that code, in the sense that we would have to fully support it towards our customers and extend it for new requirements. And this prototype is also great for showing to potential customers, and also to investors, if they are sort of for the next round of financing. So after having decided or built the prototype, the next step has usually been to try to figure out what a minimal viable product is. What is the least, or the essential features of this product that we need to have included in our first product we send to a customer. So we just try to strip away everything that's not necessarily part of the MVP. So we have something that we can ship to customers, something that we can demo, and get feedback on. So we've had to get something out to the customers, and that they can start to explore. The products we've been building have been of the kind that the customer usually have to set a few things up before they can start using the product. They have to allocate resources to work with it to start with. They have to allocate hardware, maybe set up labs and stuff like that. So even if the product isn't the final product, it's really good to get something out there that they can start playing with, and that does useful things. But it doesn't have to be everything that you want to build in the end. The stuff that you sort of strip out of the product, you put that on the roadmap, and that shows them where you are going with the product. And the feedback we get from customers help us prioritize on that roadmap. Some of the stuff we probably want to move up, and some of the stuff we maybe not ever implement at all. So if you need Series A funding that we have been needing, we realize that there are a few things that we need to get ready in order to be able to get any funding. There are no really hard rules for this, but in my experience, there are a few things that really helps you establish funding. And having an MVP ready and delivered to some customers and proven in the market is really useful. That way, in potential investor can talk to those customers and validate whether the product or the service actually solves the problem that they have, that it's a springing problem, that it's a painful problem that it solves. Without that, it's harder to get funding. We also need a plan for what to do for the next 2-3 years, similar to what we had when we started the company, but with more detailed plans and milestones and so on. Plan for what we're going to use the money for. Whether it's going to be for scaling up sales or engineering or marketing or establishing a new market, maybe start selling in the US or parts of Europe or something like that. But really a good plan is essential, I think. Also something that might not be obvious, at least it wasn't to me. It should have been, but it wasn't. And that's that the original founders and any additional investors, or if you have an angel investor, they need to participate in some way in this new round of funding. If they don't, it's a warning sign to the investor. So you have to save some funds. It doesn't have to be all that much. If you are a founder and you're generally don't have all that much money, the investor will understand that. But it's a really good sign that you're willing to put up funds that are scarce to you, and you believe in the future of the company. If you don't, then that will be a huge warning sign. An investor would also want to see a projection of your growth. What is this company going to look like? It's all going to be hockey sticks, of course, but still there needs to be a believable progression of the company over time. And it needs to be an interesting result towards the end of that curve. Otherwise, it becomes less interesting to invest. Having control over your IP is essential at this stage, of course, as all the others. Especially, it's important to try to figure out what is unique for your company or your product. So an investor will look for that, trying to see if this can be easily copied by someone else. Does this company provide something unique that will actually, as Jane said, solve a painful problem, but also cannot be easily copied. And at this point, if not earlier, an investor is interested in knowing what the exit strategy is. Are the founders actually interested in selling this company or doing some other exit in the future? It could be a long time, but eventually an investor is going to want to get some of the funds back that they invested, or hopefully with a multiple on that. But it needs to be figured out and it needs to be presented, in my experience. So once we have secured funding, it's time to start growing the company in various ways. And in addition to just working with the product and making that a great well-selling product, there are other things that needs to happen as well. That wasn't obvious to me when we started, and that's developing relationships with partners that can help you sell your product, and potential acquirers, and other investors, or same investor, but certainly also other investors. And the reason you want to do this fairly early is that it takes time to build a good relationship and also build confidence in the company. If you suddenly need money, it's not going to be very helpful to call up some potential investors and try to get them to invest. But if they've known the company and followed the company for a year or two and see that you have been able to deliver on your promises and they know you and your team well, it's going to be much easier. And that's also true for a potential acquirer. It's really, really hard to just cold call someone and say, hey, I want to sell my company. We have another bid from another company. Are you interested? It's going to be a really uphill battle at that point. But if you have an established relationship with potential acquirers, it's going to be much easier. Then you have someone to call and you have a much faster startup of that process. Also, you need to market your product somehow. We've been trying to figure out where the market channels are. If it's bloggers, if it's trade shows, it used to be magazines. I don't think it is anymore. Today it's more influencers or thinkers in the market or in the segment you're working in. But it's really important to find those. We're trying to stay away from building consultancy businesses. We've really concentrated on building products or services. And the reason, there are several reasons for that, but one important is that in our experience, services does not add value in the same way as a product does. It's not the same sort of multiple. You can sell a product in many copies, but you can only sell a person in one copy, right? So we tried to stay away from services. We've tried to outsource services. In many cases, we have built products that require some services to use them or to install them or to support them and integrate them. And we have not taken that business. Instead, we have tried to concentrate on building the product, and we have left it to others. We have partnered with integrators and services firms and let them do that stuff. So we can concentrate on building the product and not have our developers distracted by doing services for our customers. It's really easy to get dragged into long projects with customers, and we're happy to give that business to someone else. We also found that after a while, it turns out that the product that we initially thought we were going to build wasn't exactly what the market needed, or the market for it wasn't as large as we originally thought. So we have been, at those points, prepared to change course a bit, build a slightly different product, or build another product that complements the one we've had. So you should be prepared for that, or at least contemplate that. It's not something we've been doing a lot, but we have done it a couple of times, just to get to market that has been larger and want to get a better prospect for the company. And we've been founding the companies with a number of engineers, and we've built the teams as we have been growing. We've built the teams around those engineers. So they've sort of become, in many ways, team leads for when we've been growing the company. So if everything goes really well and your product is successful, at some point, at least we have been looking for an exit. Or maybe not so much looking for an exit as having been approached by someone who wants to buy the company. And we've found that it's usually a good idea to wait for that before you start off a process where you invite other bidders for the company. We have been mostly aiming for tech sales, where we invent some technology, prove it in the market, and then sell the technology to someone who wants that and can explode the market for it. That was certainly the case with TailF, and having that in mind, it drives some of the decisions you make. So if the goal is to sell the company on the technology it has, not the number of customers or not the size of the profit, we found it easier to get good valuation for the company if the tech is really good, and because that's what we are really good at, building nice technology. But having that as a goal, it might be more important to build a relationship with a potential partner or potential acquirer of the company than it is to actually have a really large number of customers. So if you have to choose at some point, it might be better to prioritize a project with that, or put resources on a project that's done together with a potential acquirer than it would be to maybe spend resources on other things. But to get to an exit, there are some things that really, really helpful. And one of them we've found is that if you can compete with a larger company that you think will acquire you or can acquire you, if you can grab business for them, if you compete with for the same business with that company and you manage to get the customer, that is a really good thing to gain their interest. It proves your technology, and it proves that it's so good that they're willing to buy from this really small company in competition with a large company. So that's really really nice validation of your technology. As I said, it's really good to build relationships with potential acquirers from early on. And you preferably should have a relationship with some champion at the M&A department. And as a programmer, that's certainly not my expertise to do that, but we have brought on other people that are really, really good at doing that kind of marketing and approaching M&A people and building that relationship. But unless you have a champion at the M&A department or the senior VP or CTO at a potential acquirer, it's really going to be hard to get them engaged in a bidding situation for your company. There are investment banks that can help you create or sell your company, but they also have a lot easier time and can get a better valuation of your company if you have all these relationships to start with, or even if you just have one. But it takes time, so it needs to be done early on. It's way too late to start doing that when you get a bid from someone that you're tempted to accept. Then it's too late to essentially call someone else. You can try, but it's really, really hard to have someone get into that bidding situation. All right, so what do we think we have done right? I'm not sure this is the right answer, but this is what we think we have done right in the companies that we started. And as I said, there are many different ways to do that. But one of the things we've done right, I think, is that we have divided shares equally among all the founders. When we started, we started out by dividing all the shares, and then from that point, there turned out to be slight differences because people invested in some of the founders were able to invest either money or time. So maybe everyone didn't end up owning the same amount of shares, but at least everyone started with the same amount. And that has avoided a lot of conflict. We have also all started with the same salary. Usually everyone does not have the same salary when they jump on ship like this. I mean from where they're coming. But we have agreed to avoid conflict. We have all agreed to have the same salary if we are even going to take out any salary. But eventually we have done that. We have also always had a great trust for each other's competences and commitment. And what that means is that we have felt that we could rely on everyone doing their really best, and we know that they are all really good. So we have, of course, questioned everything in the company has always been sort of questioned and put into review and been up for discussion. But we have always had great respect for each other's competences. We tried to have a really open environment where everything is up to discussion, and we have not been afraid to realize that we have been wrong in some decision or whatever. I think that's been really great. We also been eager to work with the customers, close to customers, the whole company. And when I came from Ericsson, it was the case that many of my colleagues had never even met a customer or heard about someone who's met a customer. And that doesn't really work in a startup, right? And we all enjoyed working with customers and getting to know the problem they have really close. As Jane described, that's really also one of the key requirements when you have a startup, that you get to learn the problem that the customers have. And in many cases, they have a solution as well, but that's not as interesting. Actually, it's usually not the right solution at all. But it's really interesting to get to know their problem and try to figure out what the right solution is. We've also always tried to provide fantastic support. So if you are a startup, you have to be really nice to the customers. They are betting on you that you will solve their problem, even though you are a small startup that could very well go away. So the least you can do is to provide really good support, and that will make the one that brought you into that company a champion of your stuff and promote you inside that company. And great support can also cover a lot of things that when things go wrong, you can actually turn that into a positive thing if you have great support and can solve the problem quickly. We have also always been let technology lead. I don't think we've ever sold anything that we hadn't already built, or at least were very certain that we could be delivered in a short time. I think that's been a strength. Also, we have not been in love with any specific technology. So we have thrown away things for sure. Erlang has stayed with us, mostly because it's been so great. We have used other languages. At one point at TALF, we were asked to re-implement, or not as much that maybe. We were asked to build a new product, and we agreed to do it. We thought it was a great idea, but we perceived that the market wanted it to be built in Java. So we did that, and it turned out to be a big mistake because the product didn't fly, or we had a lot of problems with it. So we put it on the back burner for another 6 months, and then we made another attempt at solving the customer's problem, this time with Erlang, and had better success. But what I'm trying to get at is that we haven't sort of been in love with the technology, and we haven't pursued the technology in favor of solving the customer's problem. That's what I'm trying to say. It's easy to get in love with your technology and just spend all the time on that, and not look at what's actually solving customers' problem. What is sellable? What is the market looking for? And I think we've done that right. We have also tried to not make any difference between founders and employees. Once we have founded the company, we have become employees as everyone else in the company. And governance has been done through the board. And we have even hired a CEO to run the company at times, because that was not our core competence. We have been good at various things, and we have tried to play to those strengths and then hire competences that we didn't have, and not been afraid to hire management and hire people that decide things in the company. We haven't felt that we had to decide everything just because we were the founders. I think that we have done that right. And doing it that way, I think, has resulted in a very flat organization. Because even if you try to avoid making any difference between founders and employees, it's really hard for someone to not listen to an engineer that's a founder. So that has helped us have a flat organization and having technology lead in a way. It's not going to fly if someone sells something that we're not going to build, or it's not buildable. That's just not. That has not been a good way to run things, we've thought. And we always also tried to ask ourselves, what is the most important thing right now? Not necessarily follow the plan that we put down 6 months ago, but instead try to figure out what is most important right now to get this product to the customer, or to solve the problem for the customer. And what I mean by that we have asked what this defined problem is, that we have tried to understand what the actual problem is that the customer is having. In many cases, the customer comes with a solution, and especially if your product has been out there for a while, they think they understand what the product is, and they decide they need something specific in the product because they have some problem they need to solve, and they have the solution for doing it. And what we've really always tried to do is figure out, go back to the customer and ask him what is the problem you are actually trying to solve. And in many cases, we have been able to find a solution to their problem that also benefits other customers, and maybe is quite different from what they proposed. And also we have had peer reviews in a way of everything inside the company, which goes back to us having a very flat organization and being able to talk about all the decisions. We're being very open with what we're doing and what our plans are, and what are things like what is the budget for this, and which customers do we have, what sales have we made, and so on. Everyone has been involved in that, and we presented that very openly in the company. And it's been up to discussion. So even if it's a sales matter, it's not, and we haven't been afraid to talk about those things, even though it's not necessarily our expertise. Also, we have been respectful of the fact that life happens. Even if you start a company and you spend all your time trying to solve that, things are going to happen in your life. Your kids are born, you get family issues, you get, well, things happen, right? So we have tried to not count the number of hours everyone is working. It has been okay to have parental leave for 6 months. If you're going to work together for 10 years running a company, you have to make room for other things in your life as well. And I think that's been a strength. Of course, if you are a founder, you tend to take more responsibility maybe than you should. But we really tried to make room for general life things. We also worked with long-term VCs that we had great relationships with over time. I think that's also been good. And we have tried to avoid customer VC branches. So sometimes customer that likes your product, they want to invest in the company. And the drawback with that, it might sound nice, and it's really good that they like your product so much that they want to invest in it, but it locks you into that customer a bit, and may make it harder to sell the company to their competitor. And they also may start to have insights into your company that you don't want them to have, or have ideas of what you should be doing. But this is not necessarily a hard rule. There are advantages, of course, to having one of the customer VCs as well. They could help you market your product and reach a larger customer base. So, but we've tried generally to stay away from that. There are many other things we have learned, but these are the things that I could have popped out of the head of my head when I tried to formulate what we had done right. I think that's about what I want to say, and maybe this might be useful if you're starting a company, or you can get inspiration from it at least.
Thank you very much, Johan. Very
You're welcome.
appreciated. Very appreciated. I will have the same question to you, but from the other end. Have you said no to capitalists coming and wanting to invest in your company?
Yes, for sure.
For what reason? They came with the wrong ideas, or you felt it wasn't working?
Well, for a number of different reasons. We have said no to customers, their VC branches, for sure. We have said no to if you run a startup that is at least partially successful, you'll get approached by VCs that want to invest in your company. And if that hasn't fit our plan, we've said no. But it's good to build a relationship with them anyway, because sometimes you end up needing money that you didn't think you would need. So we have sort of kept them on the back burner in most cases. We have not been we have tried to stay local in because we have worked really well with the investors we've had, so we haven't really looked for money outside that so much.
You talked a bit about shareholder agreement. I mean, that's interesting. Do you use lawyers?
Yes.
Yeah, you do that, yeah?
Yeah, we do. And when you enter agreement with a VC firm, it's going to be, say for the Series A round, they're going to look through all your contracts and do due diligence on your technology and all of that, and they're going to spend a lot of money on contracts, shareholder agreements with you and them, and in our experience, you need your own lawyers to represent you on that in that process, and also if you enter into exit, it's a very long process to just work out all the contracts. Takes months, so you have to keep that in mind when you look for funding. You have to have at least 3 months just to get, even if you agree on the funding, it takes quite a while to get everything in order
paper.
And all the contracts and everything.
You said you started. This is another question that's not really related to starting up companies, but you said you started with Prolog. Have you done anything since the 80s?
No, well, since the 90s. It was in the 90s. I did a lot of Prolog programming, actually, and Prolog abstract machine implementation and stuff. No, I haven't.
Yep. Then that's it. Thank you very much, Johan.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And thanks for your great presentation. And also thank Jane again for her presentation. Yes. So I will continue to the end then. Schedule for the rest of the, it says schedule for the spring, but it's not really, it's scheduled for the autumn. We'll be back on 25th of August, and then we're aiming to run 1 meetup a month, and hopefully, if the restrictions light up or it gets easier, we can come back and have like physical meetings mixed with digital meetings in the autumn. We'll come back to that. Summary, if you want to present at the meetup, if you want to sponsor a meetup, feel free to contact me or connect with me on LinkedIn or other social platforms, or just contact me through the MeetUp app. That's it. thank you very much for watching tonight, and until next time, bye.